Hello, Great Hearts Texas families and staff. Welcome to Championing Our Great-Hearted Texas Leaders. I'm here in Great Hearts Monte Vista North with Headmaster Mathie, who has been leading this amazing community and school. And we're excited to talk with him more about our classical mission and model and the good work that is happening here. So this is a founding school and founding location, right? And has a lot of depth to it in this beautiful, beautiful library that we're in. Mr. Mathie, when did you join Great Hearts and what brought you here?
So, in fact, Great Hearts did. My wife and I moved here from Canada I think, on July 1st of 2014. My wife was a teacher at the lower school. She taught fourth grade at Monte Vista South, and we've been here ever since. And I've been part of Monte Vista from the next year to the present.
Yeah. So you made the international trip from Canada to Texas for Great Hearts. So we appreciate that. And thank you for all the work that you're doing and leading this community. Headmaster Mathie, we talk a lot about our mission and how our mission animates the work that we do. At Monte Vista North, what part of that, like how does that come to life here in your school community?
One of the most important parts of education, of doing education well, of leading well, both my level, the teacher's level, is really having a lot of intentionality, how you approach the work. And so I think the mission, there's a lot of details in the mission, even in the small phrasing of the mission, that create intentionality, the direct intentionality that ends up making our school actually successful. So I think just the word cultivating is incredibly important. That notion of having something growing where you're not responsible for its beginning, but that the care that you exercise in protecting it and watering it and feeding it, et cetera, that sort of evergreen notion that's in cultivate is hugely true to what humans are, what children are. Yeah. So I think that's wonderful.
And our students need, in that cultivation, right, there's the rich soil and the nutrients in it, and the sun and the rain and weeding, right? And tending to the garden and the growing.
I was really struck in one of my first years here, the headmaster's theme all year was thumos, was spirit. And that has become central to my notion of what education is, that helping students develop like this larger than life spirit, this what we might call heart, it's everything.
Yeah, it's essential to being human, right? And that we can also talk about intellectual virtue and moral virtue and really how we're shaping students fully, cultivating students fully. What does it mean to be a classical school? I imagine you get this question a lot on school tours and when you're interviewing teachers. It's a nebulous concept that is also very kind of concrete in some way. Like, so what does that mean?
I'm going to break it into two parts. There's, I think, a purpose, which is really important. And then there's a methodology that is formed by that purpose. So I think the first thing that's indispensable to calling something classical education is the correct identification of what the purpose of education is. So we are not making workers. We are not making functional, useful beings. We're making human beings. And so having that sense from the very beginning that what you are engaged in is formation of humans, and then letting that purpose form all the decisions you make through the curriculum, education, the teaching style, how recess works, consequences, all of the things. So having that formation of the human being form everything, that's the first thing. And I think that that's critical because so much of education for the last 130 years, especially in America, more than 130 years, I suppose, for good reasons, it has been aimed at functionality. There are so many things that we need to learn. There's so many difficult careers. There's so many new skills. So it makes sense that education has become more and more formulaic, and that education has lost sight of the fact that what you're trying to do is help human beings.
Yeah.
Human.
Yeah.
So that's the purpose part. Then there's method that I think is dictated by that purpose. And so one of those things is the wide-ranging aspect of our curriculum. The fact that all of our students do the same thing and they do everything, that all of our students do calculus, and then all of our students read great literature, and then all of our students do Latin. All of our students do drama, that all of our students must draw.
Because we're preparing kids to be human. So to kind of go back to purpose, I appreciate how you said that. And, I often think about the mission statement, the truth, goodness, and beauty are kind of the pure forms that we're pointed toward. That's that purpose of education, that orientation of education is what we are seeking. And there are other ends, other purposes of education. But if ours wasn't ours, we wouldn't act the way we act. We wouldn't pursue the things we pursue. And to create human beings is really vital.
One of the phrases that we use when we're talking to teachers is that you have to begin with the thing itself. I think that's another key aspect of a classical education.
Say more about that.
The reason we do is because the world, part of what we contend about the world is that humans are enriched by knowing it, by encountering it, by being formed by it, and that we believe strongly that the world is ordered, it is comprehensible, it is beautiful, and that we are going to discover those things by being humble and approaching it and being willing to see it, to encounter it. And so that's a consistent thing from the 6th graders collecting insects, ordering insects, or the 7th graders sketching leaves and the structure of veins within actual leaves, all the way to doing real lab work in chemistry in high school, and then in physics, modeling waves and making sure that you're actually hearing sounds when you're studying sound waves, or so that real encounter with real things, and then a consistent modeling by all of our faculty of the right attitude towards the world.
And that by understanding nature, by understanding the world, we deepen our understanding of the sense of law, the sense of order within it, and appreciation of the beauty that exists all around us.
Absolutely. And then, in fact, are able to come to know ourselves much better at a much more deep level, because, in fact, we are not independent of the world. We are knowers. And there's an Aristotle quote that we memorized in 6th grade, right at the very beginning, that all men by nature desire to know. And then indication of this is the delight that we take in our senses.
There's a lot of aspects of our school and our curriculum, and we go deep into the different academic programs because we seek to know the world, and by knowing it, better ourselves and become more human, as you were saying. What is one beautiful aspect of our curriculum?
The first one that comes to mind, and of course this is because when I came here in 2015, it was one of the first classes I taught. I've taught, I believe now, 6 years of Euclidean geometry to 9th grade students. And there's a beauty in math that appeals to all mathematicians, but particularly in geometry, particularly with shapes. Shapes seem to immediately call to human beings. Geometry is beautiful in that sense that the beautiful is the good affecting the human. And it seems really effective. And then there's a next part there, which is that there's a human search that is part of this. I don't love many textbooks, but Euclid, of course, is the first textbook. It's the 2,500-year-old textbook. And the wonder of it is just how well arranged it is.
And it's a complete system.
It's a complete system, and it's a complete system where we honor Euclid. We call it Euclid, and where his real task was that ordering of the elements into a cohesive whole that students can learn. And so, really, he's honored as a teacher. He's honored as a textbook writer. But then the math itself is this life-changing experience for students. There's a way in which sometimes math, especially in middle school, can feel like something that's done to you. But in Euclid, it's something you do.
That's great.
And so that understanding of what the purpose of math is, that's an incredible experience as a student.
We're talking about our curriculum and our program. How does our mission and our model shape our culture? What does it look like to bring that work onto a school level? How does it impact how students interact with each other as well?
So I think it's not separable, is one way of thinking about that. Because our mission is to form human beings, every single part of our culture has to be formed by that purpose. And because we think that knowing the world, that coming to know the world is essential to that developing as a human, we all have to, in fact, be dedicated to that knowing the world. And so our culture is aimed at a close community, a unity between faculty and students in orientation towards the world, in orientation towards knowing the world, and then knowing ourselves through knowing the world. And then a community between students and students, because we think that the community is essential to that work. It forms how we teach. It forms what our classrooms look like. It forms all the events that we host or create, because we think that the academic side is just one side of the development of the full human being.
And that kind of also goes back to cultivation, right? And hearts and minds aspect of it.
Absolutely. Knowing the fertilizer and the sun and all those things are so important to the growth of the plant.
Yeah.
And in the same way, so for our students, the opportunity to lead, the opportunity to be generous, the opportunity to be a peer mentor, the opportunity to grow and develop and feel protective of the institution. So that community, I think, is really essential to our culture. And then I think some of the other aspects that they're most clear about our culture have a deep connection to this too. So the movement of cell phones out of the school day allows students to, in fact, directly interact with the works that we read, with the books, with the objects. Similarly, the focus on the material, the avoidance of maybe some of the distractions of modern life or life at home, the life on the digital world, allows the students really to be part of that community, not just sort of forced into that community, but in fact have time to flourish within that community.
What traditions and practices would a parent observe here at Great Hearts Monte Vista North?
I think perhaps the most constant experience that a parent would have, that our parents do have when they come on tours, is the openness to error in the classroom. And I mean that in a very particular way. I mean that our students feel free to make mistakes. So when they're at the board doing math, showing math to their peers, that they're willing to confront the pressure of being in front of everyone, and then okay with perhaps making a mistake. And that this, of course, is because their peers support them in that moment, as opposed to making that moment worse. So I think that's one of the hardest things to learn as a child. There's a lot of pressures that make that hard. But real learning, the seminar that runs our classrooms is not possible without, in fact, being wrong frequently.
Yeah.
And so developing that culture, being open to mistakes, being open to making mistakes yourself, and then being able to learn from it and having your peers help you learn from it in a generous and encouraging fashion.
Yeah.
I think that's the most common thing that parents would see.
I think that's such an important part that you're pulling out, because there can be such a tendency, particularly in high-performing schools, to lean towards perfectionism. And perfectionism decreases that humility, that openness to feedback, the learning orientation, the risk-taking that actually makes our students more human and actually makes them more successful in the world. Well, Headmaster Mathie, thank you so much for leading the school community and for everything you're doing to pour into it. Thank you, parents, faculty, and staff, for everything you do every single day. And to the Great Hearts Monte Vista North faculty, staff, and leadership for building and growing and cultivating this amazing school community. Please join us as we continue to visit our schools and championing our great-hearted Texas leaders. Thank you.